Hope you're doing well. Let's see what we got here in the comments. Good morning, team. I've been thinking about how Bitcoin has plugged me back into the system. I feel like I'm one with the universe again, and it's truly a blessing. Thanks for that, Ben. That's a really nice thing to share in the morning. I agree entirely. Remember, one of our big asymmetric advantages is that we can actually imagine a better future. It's one of the moves I put in the NPC, Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management. Asymmetrically, our vision of the future. Because see, the thing about fiat is that it literally stunts your ability to predict the future, unless it's fear and bad images, basically. So that's our huge advantage, and I'm glad you feel at one with the universe, because that's what we're going for. Tommy, what's up? Good morning, Bitcoiners. Aqualodge, good morning. Hope you're doing great. Good morning. Unplugging from the matrix takes conviction. It can be hard at first, but that is the proof of work in action. Very nicely said. Very nicely said. And we're going to be talking about that today. There's a big opportunity for everyone to unplug. Stoked for my first Bitcoin conference today. Is that so, Tommy D? Wow, great. Let me know which one in the comments. I would like to see where you're at. Good morning to this eclectic group of Bitcoiners. Thomas, we are eclectic. I think we're the smartest audience in Bitcoin. So there you go. The smartest group of people, the most aware, right? We do the work every day, so we stay on top of things. B for victory. Bon matin. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Sean recommends. Hope you're doing great, my man. Habib. Good morning, everyone. Sorry I couldn't turn up to the live shows recently. No problem, Habib. That happens. But I've been watching the replay of every episode. Habib, we love it. Christine, we love that you come here with us. I really appreciate it, Christine. Too many, I love guys. Don't get me wrong. I got no problem with white man or any color of man. We like them all. But it is really nice to have females here, right? A lot of guys into this, but I really appreciate it. So thanks a lot. Thanks for the hellos. Good morning, Bitcoin. Let's rock out with Nolan while I drive to Rockland. Way to go. Where's Rockland? Is that New Jersey or something? I don't know where Rockland is. Let's play Bitcoin. Indeed. Coffee is hot. Sun is risen. Bitcoin is pumping. Indeed. I got a gray day. I had to use my light here because I wasn't even able to get basically any sun. The days are getting shorter, as you know, and I got a mountain range for the sun to come over before it seeps into this room. So it was a little too dark to get much this morning, so I had to do it. That was fine. We're okay. But let's just acknowledge it. The sun totally up. Bitcoin, what is it doing? It's running just fine, guys. Nothing to worry about. We're great. Let's have a coffee. Talk about what's new. Knock it out of the park again, Nolan. We're going to be knocking it out of the park today. We got some shit to knock out of the park. Assalam, Second Amendment. Yeah, ban it. It hurts more national mental health. We're going to be talking about it, Muslim Bitcoiner. So now, normally, can't believe it's Thursday. No. Had a look at the MSM about the new speaker. It was a laugh. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that. I don't have a ton of stuff on that today, just a little. Don't know too much about them. But we're going to be talking about it. But first, it's time for the fakest news that I could find. What's the fake news today? This one's great. This is the ACLU, right? This is for real. Okay, so I got to read you a few tweets here. Okay, it's two different tweets, right? First, breaking. We're suing Tennessee for their aggravated prostitution statute that targets people with HIV with harsh punishment and lifetime sex offender registration. This law is unconstitutional and disproportionately affects Black and transgender women. The law elevates engaging in sex work from a misdemeanor to a felony based on someone's HIV status. Okay? I'm not gonna try and break this. It's exactly what it sounds like. Okay, it's as bad as it sounds. So ACLU out there protecting your rights to transmit HIV in sex work. Noble, very noble. Speaking of noble, would you pay for this tax, right? Bloomberg asking us, would you pay a tax on your cheeseburger if it could help climate change? Would you do that? Would you pay a tax on your cheeseburger if you could help out climate change? But, you know, the problem with eating the cheeseburger and the climate change is that somewhere in the background there's a cow farting, and he's just blowing farts out, and it stinks, and it's nothing but pollution, they say, greenhouse gases, right? So Bloomberg is not done giving us advice. They've got a little bit more for us, right? Edible insects and exotic plants may be the future of food, they say, right? Bugs, lab-grown meat to help fight food insecurity, a South by Southwest panel was told. Climate change conflict is threatening insects, or threatening food supplies. So we need insects. Kira Wright wrote it. You may see lab-grown meat and insects on the menu in future decades as the world grapples with challenges to food security posed by climate change and conflict. Okay, so the bugs are coming. The bugs. All right, so cow farts are so racist, Defina. They're like the worst. They're so bad, right? They disproportionately affect the AIDS prostitute workers, actually. So it's not just the prostitutes with the AIDS, right? They disproportionately affect the prostitutes who are transmitting AIDS. So it's really bad. ACLU is going to get onto it. So the theme today, well, first off, this show is never where you come to talk about mass shootings. Okay, I don't want to talk about them. I hate them. Don't care about the guy's name. Don't care that it was so close to me. Don't care about any of that stuff, right? What I do want to mention about it is the following, right? And I think this is important, right? Sebastian Gorka brought this up, and he says the shooter yesterday in Maine was both part of the military and mentally ill, and was released recently, or was not admitted to a mental hospital. And Sebastian Gorka says the deaths are therefore the fault of institutions meant to protect us. And isn't that what's going on here, right? You know, one of the most important orange pills we can take, one of the hard things that going through World War III really demands of us, is that we completely refocus and recenter our ideas about the things that we made to protect us, the things that were built 80 years ago to solve certain problems and make things safer, have actually been turned on us and have become the biggest threats we face, right? And that's our theme for today. That's what we're talking about. We're going to get into the Gavin Newsom and the Dodgers part of it, but really this question of this fella, right? He was known to law enforcement. They knew about him, right? He was previously in a mental institute. It looks like he was a pederast too, like a pedophile. And so, you know, and again, funny that we know way more about this guy than we've learned about any other one of these shooters. In what happened to the Vegas guy? Does anyone know? What happened to the Nashville thing? Where did the manifesto go? Right? Nobody knows. We don't know. We don't even get any answers to this stuff. So this idea now, and then John Lefebvre adds to it, right? While the FBI was busy infiltrating PTO meetings, church groups, MAGA rallies, and raiding the homes of January 6th grandmas, we have a mentally ill pedophile that was telling people he was going to shoot up an army base in Maine, and this is what we get, right? So now, I did not spend time learning about the details. I could have got some of that wrong. If he really was or wasn't, a pedophile, like, I'm just getting this stuff off of Twitter. I'm not going to look into it. I don't care. Okay. I don't care. I don't follow these things. Never come here for that kind of news, right? We don't generally talk about it. The reason I'm talking about it today is this known aspect or these connections to institutions that would otherwise be there for the benefit of our security that absolutely aren't, right? So, and that's really what we see. Look at what's happening today. Owen Shroyer, right? Owen Shroyer, Alex Jones's partner all those years, right? Owen Shroyer going to jail today. And what for? If any of you seen the video, it's unbelievable. He's just yelling and making a fuss in a room, like even, you know, not even that bad, right? Like I've personally seen people make more of a scene in almost any forum I can think of. Like I saw worse scenes in Parliament. There was a bankruptcy case years ago in Canada that I had a bit of oversight in, and there would have been an instance where health benefits were cut off because of bankruptcy hierarchy and order. It was a really big bankruptcy, Nortel, if you guys remember. They like invented so much stuff, but the Chinese just stole it at a crazy pace. So they were like a phone maker in Canada, a really big company, pre-BlackBerry. And so these guys, you know, when they went bankrupt, I don't know, 15 years ago, a lot of the employees, whoever had health benefits, you know, they have thousands and thousands of employees. So of course they had a few employees that were on long-term health benefits and things like that. Now, when they went bankrupt, this stuff was sort of not protected in bankruptcy proceedings. So whatever was being sold from the company, none of that money was going to be used for them. So they, you know, they complained about this and made a fuss. And so I was around the proceedings. And of course, the fuss they made, you know, everyone gave them sort of the latitude. There's a lot of emotions involved. We were dealing with physically handicapped people in general. And now they weren't going to be able to get these extra benefits. So it was a sad story, right? You had to get into bankruptcy law to understand what was going on and things like that. But the point is, I've seen bigger scenes made personally all over the place, right? It was no worse than you'd see almost anywhere. So they arrested him now for that. He's complaining about the elections, right? So it was a 2020, screaming and cursing, and they dragged him out of a room. So now not only is he going to jail, he's going to solitary confinement, right? So he has to report immediately to solitary confinement. Alex Jones's partner for yelling in a room, right? So he's going to solitary confinement. Now, the good news is Owen Shroyer looks like, you know, some of the other political prisoners we've seen out there, right? So he's promised to use this time in order to make himself better. He's going to, you know, read and do what he can to be strong and come out spiritually stronger. It's one of the things I know that I did when COVID first hit, and you could feel the hand of brainwashers and psyops that were sort of all around the original COVID thing. And if you remember, many times I've said I refused to get angry with the COVID thing. I knew what was going on, or at least I had a feeling of what was going on. And I said, well, they really just lost their mandate to even get me to participate. Like, I won't play ball here. I'm going to work against them. I'm going to lie. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to steal. Now, not from normal people, but from the system, right? So that means, like, I forged my tests when I would cross borders. I was basically just playing as fast and loose with the rules as I perceived the government to be playing with my own security, right? They were not letting people outdoors in a pandemic in New York City. Give me a break, right? So I was with the folks cracking locks open so kids could play in the park and things like that. So I was basically used the opportunity to fully break up with the hierarchical power structure of liberal democracies. I said, well, the system is so toxic and terrible now. As a Bitcoiner, I'm just not a part of it, right? So I didn't spend time in COVID saying, oh, these jerks did this. I said, what a clown world. They're not going to get anything right. Why should I follow them? There's no purpose, right? There's absolutely no purpose to follow these people. And Owen Shroyer, by going into, and that's what I said to myself during COVID, I'm going to use this opportunity to get better at stuff. And indeed, I turned COVID into a diet recalibration thing, right? I always understood about carnivore diet and things like that before, but I lived in New York City. It's just a land of temptation. I already noticed now when I leave Barbados after those 4 months I spent in the winter and I come back to North America and I'm walking down the street in Montreal, I feel it every year I come back, where it's just like the inundation of temptation and delicious looking food, right? Montreal is like a food capital, just like New York City. So walking down the street, it's just constant images of delicious food and great restaurants and things like that. So when I lived in New York, although I knew about eating healthy and I understood already about seed oils, the seed oil thing had been around Bitcoin already for 5 or 6 years by then. If you don't know where a lot of the seed oil stuff came from in Bitcoin, it was the Coin Center in Washington, D.C. Those Jerry Brito and these guys were into it. Aaron, what was his name again? Van Valkenburg, right? Van Valkenburg. He was like one of the first seed oil people I'd ever met. I never heard of it before that. Let me have a sip of coffee. So I knew that stuff. So I used COVID as an opportunity to, get used to cooking at home every single day. And now I can't go back. I can't eat food from, I can no longer eat food from any of these shitty places. Like I cook all my own food now and all that stuff. There's literally no seed oils unless it's an exception. I'm on an airplane or something like that. But in general, we avoid all of this stuff. And that was just one thing. This show, for example, doing the breakup, I started the first sort of trial episodes I did to see if I could do it was that summer, the summer of 2020. I just, without publicizing it, just wanted to see if I could sort of copy this system that I had in mind. I still had a few kinks to work out. I didn't get them worked out until about a year later, but I'd already been trialing the episode. I'd been pushing it to media companies to see if they would distribute it. I had done a few, or at least enough of recordings that I had a sense of what the show could be. And I used that. That's what I used COVID for, right? I used it for these opportunities to grow, and hearing Owen Shroyer say the same thing going into prison. And weirdly, I don't know if you guys saw this simulation week. So Owen Shroyer goes to prison today, or it was yesterday. Did you know that Alex Jones was supposed to have Max Kaiser on the show yesterday, but I guess it's going to be today. So Alex Jones now about to be attempted anyway to have another orange pill sent his way. I think Kaiser's still offering him 10,000 Bitcoins if he joins, or if he opens his mind to it. So that's pretty amazing stuff. So I don't know if it's really 10,000, but I do think Alex Jones and Owen Shroyer are about to become Bitcoiners. I've thought Owen Shroyer would be an excellent Bitcoiner from the moment I saw him. I was a big War Room fan of his content, especially in the 2016 election. I was consuming his content regularly in the 2016 election, but I already recognized at that point, just as I recognized in Alex Jones, the blind spot they have through not understanding Bitcoin. So Owen Shroyer, if anything good comes from his prison time, it will be that one of the things he uses to grow is Bitcoin. So hopefully he spends his time in solitary confinement. Crazy. Reading the white paper. That would be great news. So no one wants to see Owen Shroyer in jail. Hopefully he does indeed grow out of this experience, and that would be just wonderful, right? So that's what's going on with Owen Shroyer, who is currently, I guess, in solitary confinement. So unreal. So that's just another thing, right? That's the legal system again, exactly like we saw with the main guy, the main shooter, right? Things that were supposed to protect us, right? This legal system, not even close. Owen Shroyer going to jail, solitary confinement. What about the Fani Willis stuff? All these, everyone's turning on Trump. Jenna Ellis and Sidney Powell and Cheeseborough or whatever his name is. The walls are closing in on Trump. Ooh, Trump is going to go down. Everyone's turning their back on him. All this kind of stuff, right? So did you know, and I listened to the whole Jenna Ellis testimony, right? Where in the end, she says, like, some people lied to me. Okay, we had it wrong. I feel bad about it. Cry. But then you hear her sort of plead. She's a lawyer, don't forget, right? You hear her making the deal in the audio recording of her pleading to this judge. So it turns out, and this is from Robert Gouveia Esquire, so he's a lawyer, I guess, saying Fanny's guilty plea, Fani Willis, you guys got it. By the way, if you haven't seen, so I don't know his real name, right? But he uses, the N-word with the A at the end that a lot of African Americans use friendly amongst themselves, right? You know the word I'm talking about? So he's that word for Trump, right? And he wears a t-shirt. And he went down to the Fani Willis indictment of Trump a couple weeks ago. You got to see it on Twitter. It's one of the funniest clips you'll ever see, right? And he goes, Fani Willis. You got to hear it. He goes on about Fani Willis working for the white liberal, and then he wants Trump for king. It's one of the best interviews you're ever going to hear in your whole life. In your whole life, there's nothing better than this guy. All right. He is the funniest guy. It's one of the funniest interviews you'll ever see. So go have a look. Fani Willis. N-word with the A, but it's the friendly version that African Americans say to each other for Trump. You got to see it because it's hilarious, right? And I can never say Fani Willis's name without his accent in my mind. Fani Willis. I can't do it, but it's great, right? Fani Willis, okay? So Fani's guilty plea deals are not even considered judgments of guilt under Georgia law. How embarrassing, right? So all guilty pleas, in quotes, is what Robert Gouveia puts there, were actually deferred adjudications under Georgia's First Offender Act, which they read out aloud to make sure this is what she was asking for, right? The judge made sure she was aware of what she was doing, and she made sure and insisted that this is what was actually being entered into, right? So it's Georgia's First Offender Act, which means, as the court states below, each defendant will be completely exonerated of guilt if they complete probation. 0 judgments of guilt, 0 convictions. Fani has no case. Which is, I mean, I get it. A lot of people are out there still saying, oh, the walls are closing in on Trump, even MAGA people, even Trump supporters. So this isn't like are you under the spell of mainstream media or not? This is people just not understanding how the legal system actually works. This, to me, continues to look like they were overcharged and they can't make any of it stick. So it's actually the government looking for these plea deals, hoping they can get anything from them. But again, all these people have to say, right, is that, yeah, the truth. Trump believed he won. I mean, does anyone really doubt that? I mean, I know there are people who are brainwashed that doubt that, right? That somehow have created this hallucination that the real scenario was Trump knew he lost and he was out to subvert the system, other than he believed he was cheated, which I think is a lot more likely, right? I think Trump being cheated is an issue. So I think he believes he won, right? I think we can safely say that. So there you go. So again, the legal system we're seeing, absolutely running amok. And you can even see it now in the complicity of the media. And this is what we've been talking about for a while. This is the stuff we're learning about from Mike Ben Cyber, that the entire information laundering system, the censorship system, the censorship industrial complex, almost entirely incentivized by these financial transactions and they basically turning systems that were supposed to protect you on their head, ass backwards, so that now they're actually predatory and evil, right? So we can see it in the case of the 51 known liars that signed the Hunter Biden laptop letter, right? So these are supposed to be national security advisors, but just look at the persuasion they learned here. We've talked about persuasion many, many times, right? Persuasion being a way to get someone to come to a conclusion by seeding the ground beforehand, so that person thinks they came up with this conclusion on their own, but really it's just the normal, predictable way the human mind works, which is you take a focused illusion, you draw attention to it, and then you kick in any form of threat or survival mechanism, and you allow the person to put 2 and 2 together to come up with a solution to survive whatever it is they feel threatened by. And that's how you get cognitive closure, and for them to understand the thing that they're trying to get, the thing that they're trying to do, is to protect themselves from this threat, right? So persuasion we can see in the following story, which is all about the America First legal group subpoenaing information over the election and what went on there, right? So America First Legal saying the following thing. Explosive docs. New docs obtained from our lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, it's called CISA, indicate the federal government immediately participated in an effort to discredit the Hunter Biden laptop story the same day of the New York Post's reporting. On October 22nd, 2020, right? So that's almost 3 years ago to the day. 2 weeks before Election Day, CISA officials reported on the laptop story. QAnon conspiracy theory explodes ahead of the election. Reports about what was purported to be in Hunter Biden's computer hard drive have sparked renewed activity from Q and linked it to the 2016 Pizzagate conspiracy. The Fifth Circuit recently found that leading up to the 2020 election, CISA likely violated the First Amendment because CISA was the primary facilitator of the FBI's interactions with the social media platforms and worked in close coordination with the FBI to push the platforms to change their moderation policies to cover the hack and leak content. Even though the FBI had already confirmed the authenticity of Hunter Biden's laptop by November 2019, and despite its close coordination with the FBI, CISA still reported the story as QAnon and Pizzagate conspiracy theory on October 22nd, 2020. So remember that. FBI and everyone knew Hunter Biden laptop in 2019 was real, and they're still trying to set up this stuff. This is what persuasion looks like, right? And even this idea, remember that they came and told everyone, well, we'll see that. They get into those notes, right? So only a few days later, a group of 51 former intelligence officials had, at the behest of the Biden campaign, discredited the story as a laptop op that had all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. Even if CISA was truly in the dark about Hunter Biden's laptop, the Atlantic Council, haven't we been talking about them for a little while now, right? Haven't we been talking about the Atlantic Council because they're running stuff on mixers this week for Bitcoin, right? So this is, and we're going to talk about that whole story right after this because it's important. We have seen this blueprint several times now, and it's coming after us currently, so in real time. So here's what he says, right? Even if the CISA was truly in the dark about Hunter Biden's laptop, the Atlantic Council, a private think tank, was somehow savvy enough to run a tabletop exercise in September 2020, right, to shape how social media would cover a potential hack and dump operation relating to Hunter Biden. That's called persuasion. That's exactly what they did, right? They persuaded everyone to see what it is they wanted people to see. They were telling people this was coming. Disturbingly, our litigation against CISA previously revealed that it has also assisted with pre-bunk, they call it pre-bunk here, efforts to stop disfavored ideas before they spread. So they mentioned pre-bunk a little while ago, America First. So America First Legal, by the way, is a subsidiary or funded by America First PAC, which is obviously one of Trump's PACs, right? So just so we know where the information is coming from, I find it credible, but I want to tell you it's coming specifically from, one side, right? So, but to me, I don't feel any need to not think this is accurate. But we got to follow the money in all instances. So pre-bunking here was what they said, and it's their Orwellian term, right, for stopping ideas they don't want spreading, right? Which is persuasion. It's the same idea, right? Persuasion, pre-bunking. The word persuasion is not my invention, but it is not like a real word, right? People are out there trying to say that this is how the hypnosis effects work in media, where you can seed something and then get people to use this sort of cognitive closure effect in order to come up with the idea on their own, right? But basically, you can induce it every time. My book, The NPC Guide, The Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management, is a lot of this stuff, right? It's a lot of like putting a person in a position where they'll figure it out on their own, but you've basically turned them in a direction and they'll walk that way, right? Think of it as like people blind, when someone has something a blinder on and the game is to spin them and disorient them, right? Well, as Bitcoiners, we can do that to NPCs, right? And we can put them exactly where we want them to go. And then you take the blind off and they should be able to walk straight forward. Now, it's not every time. Most of these people will get distracted and, not find their way. But that's sort of what it looks like in the book, right? And that's what these people are doing here. That's what the national security apparatus and CISA are doing here. They're basically taking blindfolded people, spinning them around, and then pushing them in a direction where they know what they'll see when they take the blindfold off. The first thing they're going to see is the thing that they were persuaded to see, which is what we had here, right? So the America First Legal goes on. As America First Legal continues to uncover the deep state's interference in the 2020 election and violation of our First Amendment rights. Oh, sorry, they're just plugging their other work. So there you go, right? We've got these censorship in elections. Looks a lot like the stuff we saw with Owen Shroyer and Fani Willis, right? These are institutions that were supposed to help protect the country that are not even coming close, and in fact are doing the exact opposite, right? Exact opposite. Now, the reason all of this is really important, everything that I just said about Atlantic Council, imagine the Atlantic Council involved in the Hunter Biden laptop fake news story. And now we get this, right? So this is Nick Carter. I've been talking about this for a while, but Preston Pish joined in as well now. So I'll add both of these. So Nick Carter doing what Nick Carter does best, right? Using his, just incredible writing abilities, incredible insight, very, his star will continue to rise, I think, as much as I like making fun of him. Nick, I go kind of way back with Nick as well. I read Nick's original master's thesis when he was at a college in Scotland or something, and it was on Bitcoin. It was really excellent. So I reached out to him really early, and I started using coin metrics, which was sort of something he just threw up and worked on himself in the early days. And I actually took the coin metrics data and built most of CoinDesk's early data tools off of Nick Carter's project. Now, he gave me the data for free because it gave him great advertising. So that basically Bitcoin price that came out of CoinDesk, which was what made the company, right? The Bitcoin price quote is how CoinDesk grew so quickly, very deliberately. That was what we had in mind because you could so easily use it in a sentence. No one had any reference rate for Bitcoin before the CoinDesk price. That's what allowed, we were 4 or 5 people like just in a room, right? It was not a lot of people going on back then, but it looked a lot bigger and more successful because every single one of these large media enterprises used our price reference and would say according to CoinDesk. So we were getting multiple citations in all the fake news. And that allowed, the old SEO thing, and it just made us look, very successful. And we were successful. So the Bitcoin price thing, which was invented before my time, by the way. So, but it was something that we continued to work and protect and cultivate. So we did it with a simple average and simple data before. We just took exchange data from 4 different exchanges. Bitfinex, Coinbase, Kraken, and I forget, maybe blockchain.com back then. There was no Binance yet. I think blockchain.com was the biggest that we used out of Europe. Anyway, it was a simple average. We just blended the price. People quoted it. It worked. We did great. So Nick Carter and I became friends at that time. So he used to come to my office all the time. We used to hang out. We used to talk about this. I'd book him for shows. I think I booked him for his first keynote way back in the day. And he was always great, always, really insightful. He had been working for Abby Johnson, the CEO of Fidelity. So he already had a crazy, crazy good job before any of this stuff, and was one of the people that actually helped bring Fidelity into Bitcoin. Like, it was actually his work. Abby Johnson let us know about that in 2017 already, that this was going on, because I booked Abby Johnson for a keynote in 2017. It was pretty cool. So Nick Carter already back then had, and by the way, Nick Carter was a person that you could have any one of these conversations about with Trump and the media and the lying and all this stuff. Easily have these conversations with him back in 2017, 2018, when it wasn't always obvious, right? Charlottesville was really poisoning the well. You couldn't just talk about Trump anymore. As easy as it was to talk about him before, it became harder, especially in New York City circles. But Nick was always capable of having adult conversations about all this, and didn't, fly off the handle about any crazy shit. Looked less brainwashed than most people, put it that way. So I'm a fan of Nick, just so you all know. So here's what he says. Just to recap, Wall Street journalists, and he names them, write a flurry of articles citing elliptic data, claiming that PIJ, a Hamas affiliate, raised $93 million in crypto, and cites BitOK claiming Hamas raised $41 million. Senator Warren uses this article to claim that Hamas raised over $130 million in crypto. This article is her sole citation in her letter. The entire letter depends on the Wall Street Journal article. How many times have we seen this? How many times have we talked about exactly this scenario? It's almost every day. It's almost every day we talk about one of these persuasion scams of cutouts that create things, and then they're cited by the politicians who go, oh, what? Right? So he goes on. Over 100 members of Congress signed the letter. Sounds like the 51 known liars, right? which asked for the Biden admin to further crack down on crypto. Chainalysis comes out with an article disputing the Wall Street Journal claims, saying that instead of 82 million of Terra financing, the real figure was about $450,000. It's unclear which wallets they were referring to. Either way, it looks like the Wall Street Journal analysis is vastly overstated. The Wall Street Journal then refuses to follow up or retract, instead writing more articles relying on the claims. Now, he also mentions, and this is what we talked about yesterday, that these two writers are normal participants in the cybercrime specialty beat. They know what a block explorer is, and they know how to read the data. They are not mentally handicapped people that are like, what's Bitcoin? They know what's going on, right? So don't let the journalists hide, oh, it's new stuff and no one at Wall Street told me how to read it. They know what they're doing. All right. These people have been on block explorers before. They know how to read them. They know how to read the data. They're not mentally handicapped. All right. So, and that's what Nick Carter asked. Are they stupid or evil? All right. He answered it. Here are my questions. He goes on. Where is the BitOK report? I haven't seen it anywhere. Do BitOK stand by their findings? Can they share the work, or are they just making outrageous claims to make a name for themselves? Elliptic has been awfully silent in this. The Wall Street Journal is citing them directly. Analysis by leading crypto researcher Elliptic showed. Is this a matter of self-styled on-chain sleuth journalists gone rogue using Elliptic software, or does Elliptic itself have a report? If so, can they share their work? The stakes are extremely high now, is what he's asking. Can Chainalysis confirm which Wall Street Journal claim they are responding to, right? Because Chainalysis got involved. Because this letter was signed by fully 20% of US Congress, and the entire thing relies on the Wall Street Journal article. And it is directing the national security apparatus against the crypto space. We urgently deserve answers. Elliptic, especially, please release a statement either standing by the Wall Street Journal analysis, repudiating it, or confirming that the Wall Street Journals went rogue with Elliptic software and misunderstood the data. Preston Pysh gets involved too, and Preston says the following, right? So Preston goes on to say, let me get his quotes. I thought Preston's analysis was even more right on. He goes, Senator Warren and 104 other members of Congress wrote a letter to the president about their concerns that crypto was financing terror. Then FinCEN published a major policy initiative. A major policy initiative in what appears to be a coordinated effort. Here's my response. So he wrote this in Bitcoin Magazine, so you can go to Bitcoin Magazine and read Preston Pysh's article. So did I not get more from Preston here? Jeez. Oh yeah, here it is. Some key highlights from the article. In the face of an unstoppable tide that is Bitcoin, it is paramount that we as a society, and particularly as citizens of the United States, recognize the critical crossroads we find ourselves in. The trajectory of Bitcoin's innovation and adoption will continue with or without the active participation or understanding of any single nation. The question that remains is whether we will be leaders or laggards in this inevitable financial evolution. Delving deeper into the facts revealed by Chainalysis, it becomes increasingly evident how Senator Warren's letter dramatically skewed the situation. The detailed analysis zeroes in on a specific address that conducted over 1,300 deposits and 1,200 withdrawals within a mere 7.5 months, with a total inflow of roughly $82 million in cryptocurrency. However, a mere fraction of this amount, approximately $450,000, can be linked back to a wallet associated with terrorist activities. This represents a mere 0.3461% of the purported $130 million claimed in the letter, a staggering discrepancy that lays bare the deceptive nature of the narrative pushed by the White House. Additional information, and he goes on to say who could, get into this and understand it. So there we go. We've got elections, we've got the money laundering thing, and now we understand exactly how this stuff operates. Remember, this letter came from the journalists, and then Senator Warren cited it. Now we're going to get the Atlantic Council jumping in this week with their stupid thing with the mixers that they're talking about. So you're going to have all the pieces in place to run exactly the same play they've run on January 6 people, on elections people, on the Hunter Biden laptop. It's all the same story. It's exactly the same story. And it's very easy to see once you see it once, because it's a copy and paste every single time, right? Oh, by the way, I got Mike Benz's phone number, so I'll be chatting with Mike Benz shortly. Mike Benz has helped us understand all of this stuff, and I believe he will be either writing something in Bitcoin Magazine, or I'll try and get him to speak at Bitcoin 2024. So there you go. Right now, we understand that, and we already are persuaded in one important way, which is with the election piece, Bitcoiners, through our own understanding of the engineered network, and I've mentioned this many times, but it's important to always reiterate, Bitcoiners, our entire investment philosophy that comes out of the engineering of the Bitcoin network means that we understand the trade-offs between convenience and credibility, right? That is Bitcoin scaling engineering debate in a nutshell. And it always has been that. We knew about all this stuff before we ever had election troubles or anything like that. We knew that there was a trade-off. You don't get to choose both credible and convenience, right? Convenience is what the shitcoins optimize for, right? So they're convenient, but they're not credible. Bitcoin is optimized for credibility. It makes it somewhat harder to use. It's not hard to use, but somewhat harder, right? But we understood these things. So that's why when you see the following article, just to show you how this is going to continue, right? Because we have another example of it here. We get Matt Levine, all right? Matt Levine. Matt Levine, I've met him before, is not an idiot. He's one of the smartest journalists you're going to find on Wall Street, right? A very smart guy. Here's what he says. Bitcoin is not great for murder. He's right about that, okay? Also a Silk Road theft, fraud at Genesis and Gemini, AT1 calls, and blockchain for DTCC. So he goes on about this, and it turns out that Lynn Alden had to jump in and say this was written either by a malicious person, because he goes on about how Bitcoin sucks for this and Bitcoin sucks for that. It's not going to work. So Lynn Alden had to come in, and Lynn Alden wrote a rebuttal to this thing saying, you're wrong about this, you're wrong about that, you're wrong with this. And she comes to the same conclusion that we're talking about here. So I did not read Matt Levine's article, okay? I did read the response, and she comes up with the same conclusion that we've all been talking about here. Matt Levine is either stupid, because Lynn Alden's assessment was like, okay, if he wrote this in 2012 or 2013, this article would make sense. But it is 2023. Matt Levine knows better. So he's either stupid or evil, right? So she says the same thing that we've seen Nick Carter now say. Now, these are not necessarily related stories, but they are. They're the same story. They're the exact same story. This story now, Matt Levine's, will go into the persuasion hopper with all this other stuff being run against Bitcoin. So I continue to think that there's no way out of the crosshairs at this point unless the whole thing keeps coming down. But Bitcoiners looking like they're next up in being tarred and feathered and targeted and all of these things. So the good news is we get the guys at CNBC who, you know, we're no fans of, but starting talking about the halving. Joe Kernan, they're pumping it up on CNBC. You know, you got all of this stuff going on, right? So it's not so simple as they can just run these ops and bury every Bitcoiner, right? So it's not that simple. And the ways in which it's not simple are also obvious if you keep looking at what happened yesterday and where we're headed, right? So Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, goes to China yesterday. So he's in China, right? And they're talking about windmills. Did you know that Siemens, the big German company, no one's ordering the windmills anymore. They're having to shut it down. Their stock is tanking. Obviously, they're getting killed, right? So they're not. And no one's buying their windmills anymore. They have zero orders of windmills, right? So you get what's his name over there, Gavin Newsom, talking about green energy infrastructure, right? Terrible body language, really bad, right? There was one point where Gavin Newsom is so he's in China, right? And he's in China. He's talking to Xi. Xi does his typical like, who's this loser? And you can even see the Gavin Newsom trying to dominate Xi with the body language, right? Because he's taller and all these things. And what he comes across as just the most vapid Western American guy ever. Like Xi is like, I'm not even going to play this game. And it's so bad that at one point Gavin Newsom is trying to show Xi where to sit in his own room. He's like, let's go sit now, like, because he's trying to be the leader in the body language as much as he can, right? But Xi's sort of like not paying attention to him and putting his back to him and not, really not giving him much. But here's the thing, right? So he's there. Some people are laughing at him. You get Tim Young saying Newsom is Biden's replacement. Also, they discussed climate change, something China doesn't care about because they're already communist. They're already communist. So they did want to talk about fentanyl abuse together, which is great, right? But and then you also get Sticks, Hex, and Hammer saying that he's pretending to be a statesman, right? And that the whole thing looked terrible. But here's the thing, right? So if it is true, and many people are saying it, that Newsom will be the Biden replacement because Biden just won't be able to make it to the finish line, right? So again, when did I say in the summer that Biden might meet his untimely death and it will all be sad about it because it's going to be an old man thing? He's got till about Christmas, I'd say, right? I can't see them keeping him around much longer because that dog ain't going to hunt. So it looks like it'll be Newsom. Now, here's the thing that and our theme and coming up to the sort of conclusion here. All these institutions the ones that are supposed to keep us safe aren't keeping us safe, right? It looks like what's going on today with Iran, I guess the Israelis are doing the ground invasion today. I think they're going to keep bombing. I don't think it's going to be today, but people say they're moving today, right? So looks like Iran, that the whole Azerbaijan, Armenia thing, Turkey, it looks like it's all going to pop. I mean, not looking good, right? Looking really bad. Looking like we kicked a hornet's nest and we're in big trouble. All right. So now imagine this. Imagine the scenario. Joe Biden or his replacement, Gavin Newsom, right? Or his replacement, Gavin Newsom. Now, if things continue on this way, these two folks are going to have to run a military draft. There's no way around it. There's no way around it. They need a draft in order to see through any of this stuff, right? America does not have the soldiers. We do not have the military to run all of these fronts any longer, right? So we need a draft. Now, or there will have to be a draft. Now, the funny thing is, right, with the disillusionment that leftist politics have incubated in America, whether or not they believe the brainwashing or not, there are not an awful lot of people out there who think America is great. Right? Not a lot anymore. In fact, the only ones you really had that would have showed up to a draft were, I think, the MAGA Trump supporters, right? Because the way I figure, the MAGA Trump supporters are going to be the first ones to help you in the event of an invasion or real trouble in America, right? They're armed. They're those guys, as far as I can tell. How many of these people do the Democrats really have? None, right? They get the low testosterone. You got to just say it as it is, right? I have a lot of Democrat friends who are on the manly masculine side. Maybe not a lot, but we can all see that it's much more feminine on the Democrat Party, right? Now, they don't necessarily have a problem with that, right? I think it's natural that one party would be a little more male and one would be a little more female. That seems normal and natural to me. But the when it comes to war, they're not really the team you want, right? Like the truth about war is, and women in war, is that no one takes women's opinions seriously in war. Nobody, right? Like no one is like, what does that woman have to say about war? No one, like, maybe they do have interesting things to say or relevant or useful, but I just know guys, and guys think about war all the time and think they're experts. So they don't really listen to other people when it comes to war. I don't think it's a failing on women necessarily. I'm just saying what I see. Like, I wouldn't take my wife's advice on war. I just wouldn't. She's compelled to be compassionate. She wouldn't have any understanding, or maybe she would have an understanding, but her tendency would be towards peace. Let's put it that way, right? Her tendency and her instincts would lead her more towards limiting the loss of life and things like that, right? That's not exactly the way. There is a major difference in gender, put it that way, at least that I can tell when it comes to looking at war and how you deal with it, right? So, not to say that every woman would be the same, blah, 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 blah. It's just a general thing that I've observed, right? So just like the context here being that if America was invaded by some foreign force, I believe it would be more or less the Republicans who would be the ones keeping the Democrats safe, right? That's what I think, with some exceptions, of course. So, but these guys, after the Trump thing, are not signing up for any draft. They're not going to fight for America. Like, it's not happening. They're alienated, right? So there was even an article that something like 70% of Americans wouldn't pass the draft threshold for physical health. They're too fat, right? I believe that. That seems normal. So the thing is, right, Newsom or Biden, probably Newsom, is going to have to run a draft in order to complete the picture of what it is they're fighting for here, and whatever it is they're scheming for. There's no way that any of their schemes come to realization without a draft, as far as I can tell. Like, are we just going to get other people to beat up Iran for us? No, they're a strong enough military that we have to deal with them. If that was what was happening, right? You'd have to deal with them. You can't just say, oh, can we pay Israel to deal with Iran? No, they won't do that, right? Who's gonna deal with them? The Germans? No one is gonna deal with them, right? It's only America in this case. So they're gonna need a draft. And how successful would the draft be? Well, we're getting some indication, right? There's multiple. It's like a new genre. It's like my new favorite thing to watch. Remember when I said those reaction videos could lead to the end of World War III? And I still believe that, right? Reaction videos, like we saw with Richmond, north of Richmond, and all those reaction videos that were amazing, right? People, whoa. So these aren't those. It's not reaction videos, but it's another genre that could change things. And it is the TikTok draft dodge admission, right? The amount of people filming TikToks now in the past few days about how they're not fighting in any Joe Biden war. And I don't think these people are MAGA people, right? They don't come across as MAGA people. They're just regular Americans, I'd say. You can't even tell their politics, is I guess what I'm seeing, right? So you get Tess Eccles-Brown saying millennials are opting out of the World War III draft and they're not paying back their student loans. So you get that one. And Wall Street Silver is out sharing all of these. Just every day, Wall Street Silver is sharing these stories about people not joining draft. You get another one here. What are we going to do if they knock on your door for a draft to go fight in World War III? He says, a lot of people from both sides of the ideological spectrum seem to be saying something along these lines. The people leading our country are not worth fighting for. Both the left and the right seem to agree on that point. And here's his ultimate conclusion is, what happens if they try to draft Gen Z and millennials? We didn't have social media in the 60s and 70s when we last had a draft. This could be an epic rejection of the government. I doubt the government is ready for this type of wake-up call, right? And that might be all it takes to separate money and state. In the end, all it might take is mass wholesale American rejection of the draft. And we're there. I don't think we need to do much persuasion to get Americans to not go into this draft. They're sick of the psyops. So if the situation is what we think of, right, that it is a draft is necessary for the narrative to be completed of this coup, this takeover of America by these entrenched interests, right? If they can't get the manpower, the military force required to do this job, we will have the case for separation of money and state right in front of us. And I think they're going to be left holding the bag. My prediction is now, right? So what are they going to do? Let's just game it out. Let's just use our predicted model. They're coming after Bitcoin. It looks like we're going to war. I mean, I don't see any way that we're not. I mean, maybe something will happen, right? So you get these scenarios. It looks like that's what we're leading to. I believe they'll use the excuse to cancel elections, because what are we going to do next summer when Trump is polling at whatever percent? They ran a pandemic last time to keep him from winning. A pandemic for mail-in ballots. There's no way he's getting. It's either what we've been talking about. He goes and joins JFK, or we don't have elections. Now, the no election thing is complicated because we've gone through, and you got to give it to Lincoln and you got to give it to FDR, whether you like those presidents or not, right? You got to give it to them. They ran elections during wartime. There is no excuse. There is no excuse based on precedent of no elections in America because of war. Because we went through the Civil War and ran an election during the U.S. Civil War. 1964 election was run despite the Civil War in full force. And it was Lincoln against his general. His own general ran against him, right? His own general ran against him, and said he would bring peace, and we would have two countries, and that would be that, right? In the same case of FDR. Now, he was running his third, fourth, fifth time, right? So it's already sketchy. So I'm not saying FDR isn't sketchy. He's super sketchy, right? But at least he created the precedent where America has no excuse. And this is something Kennedy brought up. I didn't know this. Kennedy brought this up during the 1864. Yeah. I meant to say 18. Did I say 1964? Yeah. 1864 election. So the elections being run each time during war times, to me anyway, means it's almost impossible. They're going to have to use this military grade persuasion in order to get over it. But then they've got to ask for a draft without an election, which is even more complicated, right? So again, I don't believe these people capable of the ability to conjure people to sign up for the war, and I don't think they're going to get there. So because they're not going to get there, that's probably the best case scenario, and I think it leads to draft dodgers everywhere, whether it's Newsom or Biden. Whatever I saw from Newsom yesterday in China, it ain't going to work. He comes across as exactly what Bitcoiners should want, which is a disingenuous, fake. He's like worse than Trudeau, this Gavin Newsom guy, as far as being readably fake, right? Like there's no way you can look at Trudeau and take him seriously and not realize this is a scam artist, right? He's obviously a scam artist. Now, if someone doesn't see it, I get it, right? If someone doesn't see it, I get it. But in the case of Newsom, to me anyway, most of his body language, most of what he's putting out there suggests a very disingenuous person. So he's like, to me, put it this way, Gavin Newsom seems like the least likely person to ever get Bitcoin. like the last person in the world. If I was to make a list of the last people in the world to get Bitcoin, it's Gavin Newsom. He's a Gettys, first of all, right? So he's attached to all the old aristocratic money of California, and as well as the Jerry Brown stuff. So what happens over there, I don't know if you know how the oil stuff works, but they've got, I don't know where they get, Indonesia or some crazy place. California, that's the reason why the oil in California is more expensive than everywhere else in the country. They get it from their own supplier, and their supplier, wherever it is in the Pacific, is basically they have a monopoly over gas in California, is what I understand, and that's why it's always more expensive. And the reason why pipelines are hard to build out of Canada into California is for that reason. That's what people have told me, right? So, and it sort of checks out. The reason why California doesn't want Canadian oil is because of this corrupted family that keeps its oil supply, maybe Indonesia or some place like that. I don't know. I don't know all the details on this, but that's what I understand. So there you go. That's what we got. Let me see some of these comments. Gruesome. Yeah, he's a perfect politician. He's perfect, World War III. Forget it. It seems as if we're going directly to World War V. I like the 3.0 too. Nice work, buddy. It doesn't matter that they lied. Washington. Yeah, it doesn't matter that they lied. If is in fact checking claims, it's egregious. Yeah, we don't think they're great. Okay, let me go back further here. All right, Dan on. Yeah, but we're not going to spend much time on these shooters, man. I don't care about them. The powers that are not attempting to weaponize life and liberty. Everything good, pure new. Yeah. Yeah, you got to write veterans cannabis. Unfortunately for me, experienced it each time fighting when locked up. 30 clips must already have strong mind before experiencing it. Yeah, I bet. The closest I've ever come is the COVID time to being locked up, and I hated it. Hope nobody ends up having two and not a strong mind. Some lost a little up top because they couldn't handle it. Very sad. I bet, Dan. I bet. Yeah, I would struggle. I promised myself when I saw Shawshank Redemption that I wouldn't be able to make it in jail. I was just not made for it. I'll get out of here. Kaiser said he will quiz Jones, and if he passes the quiz, he'll give him the 10,000 Bitcoin. Not clear if Kaiser kept the keys to the original gifted coins that Jones claims he lost. Yeah, look, guys, the thing is, Alex Jones will be a national hero at the end of World War III. He's going to go down as one of the most important characters going because he predicted so much correctly and was right about what questions to ask already 30 years ago. So because his predictions came so true, he is a must-have Bitcoiner. We must have him. He has to be on the team. Speaking of draft, right? And that's kind of what I think is so important here. Drafting people to the Bitcoin front is the most important thing we can do right now. Getting people like Elon Musk on our side, getting people like Alex Jones on our side is super important. Now I understand our side, your side, their side, who's taking sides, right? I get it. But remember, we're here to shrink the size of the state, to separate money and state. And anyone who wants to fight on that is on my side. And I think Alex Jones is so close to being there, and would be so powerful, right? If he could be turned to our side, he would be an incredible asset for us. So gotta do it. He's already a cultural hero. Yeah, for sure. And it is the take in my life that we're experiencing the past few days. Really, it is, because what it is a battle of psychological engines right now, right? To me, the thing that makes Bitcoin contrast with everything is that the psychology that perpetuates it is so much stronger, and seeing it rise in these times of trouble is proof that that psychological engine is geared the way I'm saying it's geared. It's geared towards optimism. It's geared towards people who can see through the fog of war and see really a golden age that is around the corner, right? We have a golden age that we're on top of right now, and again, it's the Mark Twain line about not knowing the difference between good news and bad, right? It's been a bad couple of weeks. Right? But the benefit of the bad couple of weeks is you start to see that there is a world that is dying in front of our eyes, and it's probably got to die, and we shouldn't be that sad for it, right? Because something new is going to take its place, and it's much, much better. And so the destroying part is hard, right? It's really hard. What we're good at is the creative part, and we're almost there. We're almost at the creative part. So if we can just make it for a few months, because I am a little worried about the next few months. But I think we're going to be okay. We now live in an America where you have to be armed. I hate to say it. I can't imagine not having a firearm anymore. We got DAs that are not keeping criminals in prison. Like, this thing in Maine is bad. Bad. It's not just big cities, right? That was pretty much the only solace I had for the past little while. But now I don't think this shit's coming out to where I am, but it's just that it's around. You can't take a chance anymore. So we now live in an America where you must exercise your Second Amendment rights. Otherwise, you got to call 911 or some shit. Like, who's going to come? Gavin? He's not coming. Nobody's coming. No one's coming to help us. So I don't think it's going to take a few elections. We can't survive another. So Muslim Bitcoiner, maybe, but we're not going to survive another one like that. There's no way. There's just no way. I can't. My brain can't imagine stringing this thing along one way or the other. I'd say burn it down before a few more elections, because we're not going to get one more election if we don't solve the 2024 situation, there are no more elections in America. It's over. Or whatever they are is just managed. It's not real anymore. This is it. Like, so I don't think we can come back after losing this one. Come back if we lose this one. Not that I believe it's the politicians that are going to save us, but the systems. It's so close that I can't picture how we get out of it if we lose the next one, right? I think we'll be hunted, and maybe we gotta all go to El Salvador and regroup there. Maybe that's the story. I can't imagine it working though. So now I'll take chaos in 2024. That's fine, right? But a neat and tidy, sewed up win, and just propaganda flying everywhere, that doesn't bode well for us. We need, but I think it's perfectly happening the way I've predicted. So I think we're going to make it. Like I said, they're probably either going to whack Trump or try to ban the elections altogether. But we'll see. Like I said, that's why I keep saying we got to draft people to our team, and why people like Elon and Alex are so important. And I think, again, it's a conquistadors thing. I think just a few of us, 100 of us, are enough to wipe out 1 billion of them psychologically. But we'll see. We'll see. Veterans, we love it. The breakup is so close, it feels like shaving with Bitcoin straight razor, super sharpened. That's what we're after, man. We're gonna win. We're gonna win. And again, I'll take, like I said before with the 2020 election, as a Bitcoiner, I loved the confusing results. That was good. So you don't want to see a clean steal. That to me means we're over. Another one of this, like, who's president? That's fine. That's fine. All right. A clean steal, not good. Not good. All right, team. Daniel, just making it. But Daniel, I'm out of here. We're done. We're done for the day. I shall see you all later. Have a great day. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. And we'll be back at it tomorrow. Peace.